LWO1 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions looking pretty good.
The STS is ready for launch.
Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 has cleared the tower.
Ten, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning. It's Saturday, October 24th, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 11:31 a.m. Eastern Time launch from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. Hello from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX. You're watching a live webcast for our 15th Starlink mission and our 19th mission overall this year. As you may be aware, this is our second attempt at this mission. On Thursday, we stood down due to an issue with the second stage camera, and we just wanted to take the time to re-examine the whole vehicle just in case. Turned out to be a small issue, so we are a go for today's launch, which could be our 100th successful flight of a Falcon rocket since Falcon 1 first flew to orbit in 2008. Starlink is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote or rural areas where connectivity is limited or completely unavailable. As of today, we've successfully launched more than 800 Starlink satellites to orbit. Today, we will be performing 2 burns on the second stage and deploying our 60 Starlink satellites about an hour into the mission. Our satellites have ion thrusters on board that will take them to their final orbit once separating from second stage, but those 2 Merlin vacuum engine burns will get them as close as we can to their final orbit. We're now at T-minus 8 minutes and 45 seconds, and all systems are go for an on-time liftoff this morning. As for weather, it's currently a watch item, but at this time we are go for launch. If for some reason we are not able to launch today, we do have a backup opportunity for tomorrow at 11:10 a.m. Eastern Time. Now what you're seeing on your screen is a live view of Falcon 9, our 2-stage vehicle that stands at 229 feet or 70 meters tall, which is just a little bit taller than the wingspan of a 747. The booster used in today's launch will be taking flight for the 3rd time. Its first mission was in June of this year for the GPS-3 Space Vehicle 3 mission, and again just last month in September on our 12th Starlink mission. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is the first stage, which has 9 Merlin or M1D engines to take the vehicle to the edge of space, where it will separate from the second stage and then start its journey back home to Earth. This reusable booster was designed for 10 or more flights with minimal refurbishment between each flight. The drone ship for this morning's mission is Just Read the Instructions, which you can see there on your screen. And this will be the 3rd landing for this booster today if we do touch down on this drone ship today. Today will be the 17th time that we will fly a flight-proven booster just this year, and the 45th reflight of a booster overall. The second stage is sitting on top of the first stage, and it's connected by that black section on the vehicle, which is the composite inner stage, currently housing the second stage's single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine. That MVAC engine will ignite after stage separation and has about 981 kilonewtons, or about 220,000 pounds of thrust. This very efficient engine will propel the second stage, carrying the Starlink satellites to a circular orbit around Earth. Prop loading for Falcon 9 began at T-minus 35 minutes, and our fuel is a highly refined form of kerosene called RP1, and we use the liquid form of diatomic oxygen, which is called LOX, as our oxidizer. Currently, RP1 and LOX are almost fully loaded on both stages, and LOX will continue to be topped off right until the last minute of the countdown, and that's because we want to keep that LOX, or liquid oxygen, as cold as possible before T0. At the very top of the rocket is where the payload sits attached to the second stage, and it's housed by that large nose cone structure which you see on your screen right now. This is called the satellite or payload fairing. The fairing will be protecting those Starlink satellites from all the aerodynamic loads and heat during ascent until we reach the vacuum of space. As many of you know, normally we attempt to catch our fairing halves, but our recovery vessels have been undergoing some maintenance. With that said, one of our recovery boats, Miss Chief, is en route, and you can see that on your screen, en route to recover the fairing out of the water following splashdown. As for the weather, it does look nice over there in Florida, but we have been keeping an eye out on some thick cloud layers, so we are keeping an eye on weather until T-0, but so far it is looking good for launch today. The vehicle, satellites, weather, and range are looking good for an on-time liftoff this morning. As we continue the countdown, we wanted to share a few recent updates on Starlink. This week, Microsoft announced a long-term strategic collaboration with SpaceX to connect Starlink with their modular data centers as part of Microsoft's Azure cloud computing service. This collaboration could help make internet access and networking capabilities available for customers in remote and rugged environments around the world. Speaking of remote locations, Starlink is making its way to another rural location right here in the United States. Earlier this week, the Ector County Independent School District in Texas announced their participation in a new pilot program to help local students and their families access high-speed, low-latency internet. Similar to other rural communities across the country, many residents of Ector County have limited to no connectivity. This issue was magnified for the school district when COVID-19 forced school building closures earlier this year, as nearly 2 in 5 students in the district do not have access to reliable high-speed internet at home. Starting in 2021, Starlink will connect up to 45 households in the community as part of the pilot program. And as the network capabilities continue to grow, it will then expand service to an additional 90 households in the school district. Our Starlink network is still in its early stages, but if you're interested in receiving future updates on Starlink news and service availability in your area, visit starlink.com. We're currently at T-minus 3.5 minutes from liftoff, and Falcon 9 is heading down the final stretch of the terminal countdown. The first and second stages are almost fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. First stage prop loading will wrap up at T-minus 3 minutes in about 20 seconds here, and second stage will complete at T-minus 2 minutes. And you will see some venting of the LOX out of the transporter erector, or the TE, and that's when the super chilled liquid oxygen mixes with the much warmer ambient air. It does create those white clouds. You can kind of see that on your screen around Falcon 9 right now. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9's
Complete.
and there's the LOX load completion callout. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9's autonomous internal flight computers will take over the terminal count, and this is what we call startup. Basically, that means that the rocket is in charge of making the decisions as long as the launch director is go for launch. And at this time, the Starlink payload continues to be healthy. Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is still looking good. We're still keeping an eye out on it, but weather is still looking good for T0, and the range is green for launch. Coming up here at T-minus 2 minutes, we should be completing LOX loading here shortly. Again, as I mentioned earlier, those white clouds that you see around Falcon 9 is from the venting of the LOX line. And this is normal.
Load is complete.
There's that call out for stage 2 LOX load complete. Again, those white clouds are normal that you see there on your screen. Just 30 seconds away from Falcon 9 being in startup. Again, that's when the internal flight computers take over the terminal count. And now you can really see that venting of the locks there from the transporter erector. This is to clear out the lines on the TE in preparation for liftoff.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
There's that call out. The Falcon 9 is in startup. In about 10 seconds here, we should hear if we are go for launch.
Flight.
LD is go for launch.
And you heard that the LD is go for launch. So it looks like weather is in our favor today. So at T minus 30 seconds, let's listen into the terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our 60 Starlink satellites into orbit today.
Stage 1 tank pressing for flight.
T minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Mission. And we have liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Propulsion is nominal.
At T plus 40 seconds into liftoff, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, carrying our Starlink payload out into space. Now we just throttled down the engines in preparation for max Q, which stands for maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Mach 1.
This is the largest structural load that the vehicle will see throughout ascent. Should be coming up on max Q in a few seconds here.
Max Q.
And there's that call out that we just passed through max Q. In about a minute, we will have 3 events that happen very quickly, one after another. That will be MECO, or main engine cutoff, stage separation, and SES1, or second engine start 1. And main engine cutoff is where all 9 of those M1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, which is when the first stage separates from the second stage. After stage separation is SES1, or second engine start 1. And this is where the MVAC engine lights up for its first burn and propels the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to orbit. And at T plus 2 minutes, we are about 30 seconds away from those 3 events. Again, that's MECO, stage separation, and SES1. Again, it's SES1 because we do have 2 burns of the Merlin vacuum engine on today's mission. We have a beautiful view of the first stage.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there you just watched MECO, main engine cutoff, stage separation, and that second stage engine ignite. We're just about 15 seconds here from fairing deploy, and on your right-hand screen you can see a view of inside of those fairing halves, looking at the Starlink payload as well. And on your left-hand screen is first stage, making its way back to Earth.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there, as you watch on your screen, that is confirmation that those fairing halves have deployed. And as a reminder, we will be attempting to pick up the fairing halves after they touch down on the water with our recovery vessel, Miss Chief, today. Now with stage 2 well on its way to orbit, stage 1 is now heading back to Earth and will perform 2 burns on its way down.
Acquisition of signal Bermuda.
The first is the entry burn to assist in slowing the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. This will be a 3-engine burn, starting off with the center E9 engine and followed not too long after by 2 additional engines reigniting. Then the second and final burn for the first stage will be the landing burn, which is just a single E9 engine, and that is enough to rapidly slow down the vehicle to allow it to touch down on its landing zone. And again, for today, the landing zone is just read the instructions, which is currently out in the middle of the ocean waiting for this booster to come back. Stage 2 is looking good and nominal. Got a nice view of that MVAC engine on your right-hand screen. Stage 2 is taking our Starlink payload to its targeted orbit, and these 60 Starlink satellites will join the constellation already on orbit, which are designed to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people here on Earth, and especially to places where good internet is really hard to access. It's just after T plus 5 minutes, so we're just about a minute away from the entry burn beginning on the first stage. Entry burn will be...
Trajectory.
There's a call out. The vehicle second stage is on nominal trajectory. That entry burn will last about 22 seconds long. And you can see on your left-hand screen the first stage, the grid fins are deployed, but they actually don't start steering until after entry burn. That's because it requires the atmosphere and air to be flowing through those grid fins. Got some really awesome clear views on both the first and second stage. You can see Earth in the background. We're just about 15 seconds or so away from that entry burn on the first stage.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn steward.
And there you can see the entry burn has begun. And as you saw, the plume started out small and then got larger, and that's because we light up the first single engine and then followed by 2 additional engines on this entry burn for a total of 3.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And entry burn is now complete. As you see, those engines have shut down. So next up, in about a minute or so, will be that landing burn for the first stage. And as I mentioned earlier, it will just be the center.
Follow nominal trajectories.
It will just be the center E9 engine for the landing burn, and that's enough thrust to slow the vehicle down. The M1D engines have 845 kilonewtons, or 190,000 pounds of thrust. Again, that's enough to slow this very large vehicle down to touch down on that drone ship that you see right there in front of you. That's just read the instructions. And this will be the 3rd landing for this specific booster. About 20 seconds or so away from that landing burn beginning. It was a very clear and beautiful day over there in Florida, so hopefully we get a nice, beautiful view of first stage landing.
Stage 1 landing burn. Stage 1 landing burn.
There's confirmation, stage 1 landing burn. You can kind of see that burn kind of shaking the camera there.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Seco.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And we had a little bit of a rough camera view there, but the Falcon has landed on our drone ship for its 3rd landing on Just Read the Instructions. This marks our 63rd successful recovery of a Falcon first stage and the 11th for Just Read the Instructions. and looks amazing as we can see it there now, standing stably there.
Lost the signal, Cape.
Now we're waiting on your right-hand screen for SECO 1, which is second engine cutoff 1. There's that call out for SECO. We're waiting for confirmation of good orbit here.
Nominal parking orbit insertion.
And there's that call out that we are in a good orbit. So now the second stage is going to coast in this orbit for roughly 35 minutes. So we're going to take a quick break during this coasting time, but we'll leave you with an animation so that you can see where the Starlink satellites are in the coast phase. So we'll see you back here at T plus 43 minutes for the second stage engine relight.
Expected loss of signal, Bermuda. Expected loss of signal, Newfoundland. Acquisition of signal, Goonhilly. Expected loss of signal, Goonhilly. Acquisition of signal, Diego Garcia.
Welcome back to the webcast for our 15th Starlink mission. So far, we've had a successful on-time liftoff of Falcon 9 from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. We had a little bit of a wobbly camera view, but we did successfully recover our first stage for its third landing on Just Read the Instructions. And we've also successfully entered our first coast phase for the second stage. We're now waiting for SES-2, or Second Engine Start 2, which is the second and final relight of our MVAC engine. This is a very short burn. It's just about 2 seconds long, but those couple of seconds go a very long way, and that gives the second stage just enough thrust to get to the final drop-off orbit for our Starlink satellites today. Again, this is the second of our 2 burns, so SES-2 is coming up here in about 20 seconds or so, and will be followed immediately afterwards by SECO, or Second Engine Cutoff 2. And we did get those call outs for SES-2 and SECO-2. It was a very quick burn, just 2 seconds long. Now we're waiting for confirmation of good orbit. Oh, there it is. And there you saw on your screen that SES-2 and SECO-2 happened very quickly. Now just waiting for confirmation of good orbit here.
Nominal insertion.
And there's that call out for nominal insertion. So we are going to coast in this phase for about 18 minutes or so. And while it's in this coast phase, it will start to spin on its central axis. So this is to give these Starlink satellites some momentum so that when they deploy from second stage, they will start to separate from each other. So we'll be back here at T plus 1 hour and 2 minutes for deployment.
Expected loss of signal, Diego Garcia. Acquisition of signal, Tasmania.
Welcome back to the webcast for our 15th Starlink mission. And if you're just now joining us, we had a smooth liftoff. Stage 1 returned for its third landing of this booster. And as we await the deployment for our 60 Starlink satellites, the momentum from the second stage central axis spin will help with spreading out the satellites. And then they will use their onboard krypton gas ion thrusters to raise themselves to their final orbit. So we are just about 30 seconds or so away from that payload deployment. And it looks like we do have a live view. We're looking at on your screen, that is the stack of 60 Starlink satellites right there in front of us. It looks like we're getting a little glare from the sun there as well. That is because the second stage is rotating a little bit on its central axis to give the satellites momentum as they deploy. You can actually see the peak of the sunlight.
Confirmed.
And there you could see on your screen the stack of 60 Starlink satellites have successfully deployed from second stage. And what an awesome view with the sunlight hitting those Starlink satellites. And right there, we just watched the final deployment for SpaceX's 100th successful mission. How exciting and what an incredible milestone to reach. What an awesome view as well. The Starlink satellites will soon deploy their single solar array, and over the course of a few weeks, they will distance themselves from each other and use their onboard ion thrusters powered by Krypton to make their way to their operational orbit. And that brings our webcast to a close. As a reminder, today's launch marks SpaceX's 100th successful flight of a Falcon rocket since Falcon 1 first flew to orbit in 2008. To date, SpaceX has landed Falcon's first stage rocket booster 63 times and reflown boosters 45 times. To all of our supporters, customers, and most importantly, employees of SpaceX, thank you for your dedication in getting the company to this milestone. Thank you as well to the range and the FAA for supporting today's mission. If you're interested in getting future information about our Starlink service, please visit starlink.com and sign up for updates. Thank you and have a great day.